Jon Faulkner here. I'm sorry, I know I posted this morning that Chris Weatherman would be with me, and he was here. We were shooting some videos, and then we went to lunch, and then lunch did not agree with Chris. So Chris had to take off to hopefully go feel better. So I hope you feel better, Chris. So today, just want to do a little quick Q&A here for you guys. As you can see, we're in a second part of our new set here. You guys are going to be seeing more and more of this in the upcoming weeks. We have a new studio that we're shooting in. We have 3 sets that we're currently building. This is the first one here. So a lot of cool new features that we're going to be able to bring you guys at Survival Dispatch, and Survival Dispatch Insiders are going to get even more access to what we do here. So I want to do a Q&A here. We got a couple questions that I'm going to go through here and answer. And if you guys got any other questions, what I'll do is I'll pause for just a little bit. I'll go back in, I'll check the comments, and if there's any more, I'll answer them there. So, all right, so the first question comes from Alan. It says, can you guys talk a little bit about your thought process on leaving the house during a hurricane? I'm going to change that to storm. Alan lives in Florida here, so he's saying hurricane, but I'll say major storm. For example, what thought process you had to consider before you decide to leave your stronghold, your house. I had to leave my house last year during Irma. Always wanted to stay, but family convinced me otherwise. So, Alan, it's a big question, and it's a question that a lot of people have to ask. In pretty much any part of the country that you live in, there's probably a natural disaster scenario that could force you to leave your house. Albeit anything from hurricanes to mudslides, forest fires, things like that happening out west, flooding in the southeast, snowstorms, extreme snowstorms, things like that in the north, along with hurricanes. As we've seen in the last couple of years, New York has been hit by more hurricanes than Florida has. So, you're not really safe anywhere. The first thing that you got to talk about is you have to have a sense, a degree of when is it going to be too much for you to stay? When are you not going to feel safe? And I think that first involves the house that you live in. So if, we'll take Florida here for hurricanes. If you live in a house that was built in the 60s, and it's a brick house, it's been there since the 60s, it's gone through pretty much every hurricane that you can think of. So therefore, you can pretty much say, not every storm is the same, but you can pretty much say that, hey, whatever Mother Nature has to throw at me, I'm pretty certain that this house can withstand the wind or the debris or the rain, whatever it might be. If you live, in Florida in a house that was built within the last 10 years, it's really never been through a hurricane. So it's difficult to say, oh yeah, of course the roof's going to stay on this house. Of course the sides are going to stay, the siding's not going to get ripped off. The windows aren't going to get blown out. It's difficult to say that. So, that's the first thing that I believe you have to look at is the structure of your home. And that's the first part of determining, is it safe to stay here or do I need to actually evacuate? So I believe it always starts with the home. Second, you have to make sure that the safety of you and your family is accounted for. If you have people in your family that are in need of medical care, it might be oxygen tanks, it might be medication that they're in need of, things like that you might not be able to store. If a bad storm comes through, it might be a week or so, if not more, before aid, FEMA, other forms of aid can get to you. And can you go that long? So that might be another section, or that drives you from your home, just due to the fact that you're not going to be able to sustain what you need in order to keep your loved ones or you yourself alive, pretty much. So you got to factor that in. And then, I would say, so those are the 2 things that will drive me first from my home. And then we actually have to talk about the travel situation, the commute. I've lived in Florida for over 20 years. I did a lot of aid coming out of Louisiana, Alabama when Katrina went through. And one of the things is I mean, when we were driving in the day, even the days after Katrina, I mean, the interstate was a parking lot. So there's no gas stations that have fuel or power to get you gas. And it was just thousands and thousands of people that found themselves stranded on the side of the road. So I believe the second section that you really have to look at is, is your automobile ready to hit the road? Are you able to get far enough away from the storm that it's not going to affect you? You know, if your car has a range of say 350 miles, 400 miles, you got to ask, does that 400 miles even get me out of danger area? You know, if you're just driving up, say from Miami, and you're just driving up Florida, and you know everything's going to be out of gas. So what you have in your tank is pretty much how far you're going to get. I'd say minus about 20-25% if traffic is just horrible. And your car usually gets 400 miles to the tank, but you know you're sitting in 5-mile-an-hour traffic or dead stop traffic. You might only get 300 miles out of that car. So where is 300 miles going to get you on the map? Is it going to get you out of the danger zone? Because like I said, like I saw in Katrina, Louisiana, Alabama, I mean all the way well into the Florida panhandle, they're completely out of fuel. So if you just think like, hey, I'm just going to drive east and I'm going to get out of this mess, you could be wrong, and you could be taking your family out of a safe house structure, putting them in an automobile, which is definitely harder to defend, harder to live in. And so, you know, that's the second thing that I would say you have to really look at is what are your capabilities with an automobile as far as distance that you can travel. When it comes to traveling also, you have to have a destination, a bug out location, whatever you want to call it, as to what you're trying to get to. If you are just saying, I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to start driving, and you pick a direction, I'm going to start driving north. At that point, you are nothing but a refugee. And you are just hoping that you come across a hotel that has, you know, a room that's free for you. You have no guarantees whatsoever. You're just a refugee at that point. And that's a situation that we always want to stay out of. So you have to have a plan set in place before a disaster happens. As soon as you sit in that driver's seat, you have to know where you're going. So I'd say that's the second thing. And then if you decide to leave, as far as your home goes, man, batten down the hatches. I mean, you know, lock all the doors, bag all the windows. If you have sandbag all the doors at the bottom so that if water does come in, you're not coming back home to a ruined house. Do everything you can to make it look as much of a fortress as possible, so hopefully looters don't rip through it and take everything out of it. You know, we see that all the time. We have, you know, a hurricane come through. The hurricane really doesn't do any damage, but then looters come through, completely vandalize your home, steal everything of value, and it might as well have just been taken away with a hurricane instead. So, you know, always make sure that you have secured your house as much as possible. You know, if you can, I mean, board up windows, even if you're leaving, board up windows, board up doors, sandbag the bottoms of doors, Arcadian doors, windows, things like that, and try to make it as secure as possible. I say take every single firearm that you can fit into your vehicle, take it with you, not necessarily just for defensive purposes, but for the fact that if your house does get broken into, those don't get stolen as well if you don't have a nice safe to keep everything in. Take as many valuables that you feel are valuable to you, and then, we'll talk about, that car has to be loaded down with water. It has to be, you have to have food in it, because once again, you have no clue what your next resupply station is going to be. Are restaurants going to be open? Are, diners, gas stations, you name it, going to be open to where you can get more fuel for your car, more food for yourself and for your family. So, you have to make sure, once again, if you have that destination set on where you're wanting to travel to, do you have enough, food and things like that to actually get you to that point too. If it's a 3-day drive that you have to make to get to your grandma's house or whatever it might be, friend's house, do you have food to feed your kids, your wife, your family members, whatever it might be. So, those are the considerations that I take into account when, I decide. I live in northern Florida. I've gone through 3, 4, 5 hurricanes here. We don't get hit the way that the South does usually. I'm pretty inland, so it doesn't matter if it comes off of either ocean. It's kind of died down a little bit before it hits my location. So I've never actually evacuated, but I have witnessed the interstate when people are trying to evacuate from down south through my town. I've seen the interstate be a parking lot for close to 48 hours before. I've seen the evacuation of Katrina. So, things like that I've witnessed firsthand. We also did some hurricane relief in Texas when the huge storms came through there. So I've seen evacuation efforts there. So, there's a lot that goes into the planning of an evacuation. But I would say, try to stay home as long as possible because that's usually the safest place to stay. It's home, And then if you do have to leave, make sure that your car is ready to rock and roll and that you have a destination as to where you're going. And then make sure that, you can take care of everybody that you're taking with you in the car. And then the last thing, secure your home as much as possible and hope for the best. So Alan, I hope that helps you a little bit. If you got any further questions, feel free to leave them below and I'll definitely get to them. So Stephen asks, as far as batteries go, how often do you change the ones that you keep in your Get Home bag? Most show having a 10-year storage life. How long do you actually leave them unused in your bags before you switch them out? It's a good question. First of all, lithium batteries are always going to last much longer than alkaline batteries. I know they cost more, but number one, make sure that your bug out bag, your Get Home bag, has lithium batteries in everything. Number one, they'll never corrode. The last thing that you want is to grab a flashlight, a GPS unit, anything that uses batteries, and the alkaline batteries have completely corroded and ruined the electronic. So I say always start with lithium batteries. Number two, I do quite a bit of outings with my Get Home bag. You guys saw pictures of Chris and I down at the King's Landing. When I go out and do testing, I take my Get Home bag with me. I just take it and I try to use almost every single item out of it, just to get comfortable with it, to get familiar with it, to see if it breaks, to see if it works, to see if I like it. So, as far as batteries go, yeah, most of them, I think it's like lithium batteries can go about 7 to 10 years. And they only lose like 10 to 15% of their actual capacity effectiveness. So, they'll last an extremely long time. What I like to do is I use my EDC flashlight all the time. So what I'll do is I'll cycle my Get Home batteries, my Get Home bag batteries. I'll take the spare ones that I have out and I'll usually throw them in my EDC flashlight rotation, battery rotation. And so I pretty much have like a kind of a circle of battery life that I do. I'll take stuff out of, caches and bags and stuff like that. I will use them for quite a while in my EDC flashlights, like this Surefire here. And when I feel like I've used them quite a bit in this, I never throw used batteries away. I'll take the used batteries out and I have a box that I keep them in. And I just throw all my used batteries in there and I'll keep them. I'll make sure that they're, not touching, causing corrosion or sparks or anything like that, but I'll just stand them all up. I'll keep all my CR123s just for the event of if something, catastrophic were to happen. I probably have, 100 or so. They're used batteries, but you put used batteries in a flashlight, they'll still go, you might get a couple nights out of them. And it might be one of those things where you only get a night or so use out of them, but hey, you can use every last drop of that juice that's still in those batteries. So that's kind of what I do. Usually every year, on my birthday, I use my birthday. You can pick any date you want. I use my birthday. I'll change the batteries out on any of my flashlights on rifles that I haven't used in a while. I'll change the batteries out on any optics that take a battery. I will change the batteries out of my get home bags. And once again, I mean, I don't just like take those and throw them away. They go into my used pile, or they go into my EDC lights. So that's what I like to do with my batteries. But you know, they can go 5, 7, 10 years, and you're just going to lose a little bit of the effectiveness out of them, Stephen. But you know, they'll still be good. So just stick to lithium batteries. That's the biggest thing for get home bags, and even if it's like a flashlight that you're just going to like throw in your glove box, make sure it has lithium batteries in it, because then you won't have to deal with corrosion. Brad wants to ask, did you guys have any issues with your personal gear that you used last weekend? He's talking about our King's Landing trip. Any gaps in your system, or are there any items that you may add? Yeah, so Brad, I took my get home bag, like I just said, with me. We were out there for 2 days, and you know, we did some night vision stuff. We did some stuff on the water, as you guys saw. You know, issues with personal gear. I didn't have any issues. I only took 3. I took 3 new items with me. I put the Katadyn Bee-Free water filter to the test. I filtered a ton of water out of it. I love it. The Bee-Free is going to be my new go-to filter that I use. I love the bag that it comes with it. I've used Hydro Packs for a long time, and the Bee-Free is a Katadyn filter that Katadyn has partnered with Hydro Pack to make a water filter system. So I use that quite a bit. Gaps in my system. I would say one gap. It wasn't a huge issue. It probably got down to 70 degrees, 65, 70 degrees that night. And I didn't bring any sleeping bag or anything. So it kind of got to the point where, like, I wish I had a sheet or something. But usually in that scenario, I don't carry anything with me. I used a Big Agnes inflatable sleeping pad, which I really, really liked. You'll see a review on that soon. That was the first time I had used that pad. I had been using some Thermarest before that. The Big Agnes, it inflates a little bit taller than the Thermarest, so it was able to get me off the ground just a touch more. So that kept my back a little warm. But all of my sleeping bags are, 20-degree bags or something like that. So I didn't want to bring anything like that. I just would have been sweating like crazy. So I got just a little chilly, in the morning. Is probably 3 or 4 a.m. I actually grabbed one of my other shirts that I had in my tent, and I just kind of threw it over me. What other gaps might we have had, or items I would have added? Probably a little bit more bug protection. The bugs down there were pretty nasty. Where I live, we don't have a ton of water around us. Down there, it's really swampy land. So like no-see-ums and mosquitoes and stuff they're just everywhere. So you just constantly have to deal with that. But yeah, I didn't have any huge gaps in my system. But I also took a lot of stuff that was like tried and true. I mean, my cooking system never changes as far as my stove and stuff goes. My tent, I've used numerous times, so I always know. I mean, we had heavy rain like 2 or 3 times while we were out there, and I always knew that everything was going to stay dry. So I didn't really have any gaps, or issues. But I'm constantly always trying new things. If you guys ever have any questions with regards to gear or something, feel free to leave them in our Insider or on our Survival Dispatch Facebook page. Because a lot of the gear, probably one of the guys on Survival Dispatch staff has used. So we can probably help you out. Or if you're thinking about buying something, but you're just kind of on the fence and iffy, definitely, ask us for our suggestions or comments on them, and we'll definitely, be able to help you out there. Next question from Matthew is, best way to make salt water safe to drink? desalination is pretty much the only way, really, and we're talking about just trying to, boil salt water and then capture the vapor. I'm actually going to be doing some videos on this. The 4th of July weekend, I'm going to the beach. I'm finally taking a vacation. And this was one of the videos that I was going to shoot while I was there, was working with a few different things to show how to make some fresh water out of salt water. Pretty much the tried and true way, it's not easy by any means, is trying to boil salt water with a fire, a bottle, and then trying to get the vapors, through like a hose that you keep cool, so the vapors go and then condensate, turn into water droplets at that point, and then drip out. The issue with trying to turn salt water into fresh water is it takes a ton of vapor, a ton, to make water. So I mean, you can take a gallon or so of salt water and get like a little cup of fresh water. So it takes a long time, it takes a long process. It is doable, and I'm going to be doing some videos on that in the next couple of weeks. So so that's definitely something that we're going to be going into. But it is difficult. If it was easy, we wouldn't have freshwater problems in the world. In Africa and countries like that, because they would know how to do it. So yeah, pretty much desalination is the only way, or the best way, I guess I should say, to turn salt water into fresh water. So let me see if there's any other questions here. All right. So. All right. I got one more question here. What's some new gear that you tried this weekend? New gear that I tried this weekend. So I took 4 or 5 new things with me. The Katadyn Be-Free water filter, that was fantastic. The Big Agnes inflatable sleeping pad, mattress, whatever you want to call it, that was fantastic. Rolls up, I mean, like a big burrito kind of size. And I'm 6'5", so I got the 7-foot version, which is nice. It gives me a little bit of room. So I tried that out, worked fantastic. I took out the Benchmade, the new Benchmade bug out knife. I got it in the FDE handles. Benchmade brought out the bug out knife probably 4 or 5 months ago. Came out in this like bright blue color, which I wasn't a fan of at all. They just came out with like it's kind of a mixture of like FDE and OD green, with a black blade, S30V steel on it. I'll do a full review on it here in the next week or so. I want to beat on it some more. But the cool thing about it, the knife is just ridiculously light. I mean, every single person that I handed it to that we were with, like, couldn't believe how light it was. And the way that they got it so light was it's only plastic handles. It doesn't have any metal liners at all in it. It just has a real small kind of nub off the blade a little bit for just a little bit of stability in the handle. But it's extremely lightweight, so it's fantastic on keeping bag weight down. I did some just small like stick splitting, small like batoning with it. Cut steak with it. It held an edge really well. We kind of passed it around the campsite and did small things with it, shaved wood with it, things like that. That was cool. I really like the knife. It's in my bag now. I love Benchmade. It has an access lock on it. So that was a really cool tool. We got an adapter so that we can mount a PVS 14 night vision optic onto our DSLR camera. So we're going to do some awesome night footage with that. We went through woods and some grassland that was there, shot some video while we were there, just kind of testing it, but that was super cool. So we're excited about that. You guys know how much how passionate I am about night vision and thermal stuff, so that just takes it to another level. What other gear did I try? What is that food brand? Alpine. Yeah, Alpine It's like freeze-dried, Mountain House food, but it's Alpine something meals. I had 2 of their meals while I was out. I'd never used that brand before, and it had good flavor to it. I enjoyed it. It's something when you've been on the trail as much as I have. Every Mountain House flavor tastes the same. It's just like you ask people that have been in the military for quite a while, like every MRE, they're just tired of all of them. So I tried some of these Alpine freeze-dried meals, and they tasted really good. So that was a win. And I used the new UV insect repellent buff. That worked really, really well. It's made out of a different material that doesn't have. It's a little more. It's not as like porous as the older buffs, so mosquitoes and stuff can't sting you through the buff. So that was nice. I was able to wear that around my neck and stuff at night, just around the campfire, and while we were working on some night vision stuff, and keep mosquitoes off the back of my neck and my ears and stuff. So I like that as well. I think that's all the new gear I tried. So, but yeah, I mean, I would say definitely with gear, if you buy it, just go try it. I tell people as far as tents, sleeping bags, start on the most beautiful night. Use spring or fall in your backyard and just enjoy it, and then wait until the weather gets not as nice and it rains, and go sleep in your yard in it again, and then take it out into the field. The last thing you want to do is go hiking with it or something like that and realize that it's not really waterproof, or that it doesn't keep you warm enough, and now you're having a miserable night. So, I always tell people, try it around your house, your property, and then start incorporating it into going out into the field and actually using it. So guys, that's gonna be the end of my Q&A today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. If you guys got any more questions, leave them below. I'll definitely answer them. We appreciate each and every one of you guys, and I hope you have a fantastic weekend. See ya.